Our guest today predicted that Virginia would upset Florida State. So I got to hear his take on the Miami game this weekend.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen or your second listen in this case. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. With our special guest on this episode, we'll talk about Carson Beck's first four performances in a Miami uniform and what he can do this Saturday on the road in Tallahassee. We'll talk about the key matchups, Miami at the Florida State Seminoles, with someone who knows Miami Hurricanes football very, very well, former Canes starting quarterback Malik Rosier, who also knows what it means to win in Tallahassee. Malik, welcome to the show, man. Welcome back, I should say. How are you?
Thank you for having me, man. Always love spending time with you.
You know, and it's you know it better than most. It's a very hostile road environment. You know, you were able to throw that game-winning touchdown pass and make so many clutch plays against FSU in Tallahassee 2017. That connection between you and Darrell Langham is one Miami fans will always remember. What's it like to play through that crowd noise? Because this is going to be Miami's first road trip of the season, Malik.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I've been in a lot of spaces, right? And again, I think it's the reason why, Mario brought Carson in. Carson has played in some really big games, some really big stadiums, right? You talk about Texas, Alabama, right? Two of the biggest stadiums in college football. And again, I give, Doak Campbell, especially with this game being so heated, with both of us being ranked, it's going to be loud, right? But I think when you have a veteran quarterback that understands pressure, right? I always talk about it. There's situational football, understanding momentum, especially at a away game, right? Shutting the crowd up really early, which is what I think Cam Ward did very well last year versus Florida, right? Kind of keeping the crowd out of it. Florida, again, is a very loud environment, but Miami did a good job early of kind of taking the crowd out of it. I think that's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing for Carson is just more making sure the young guys are okay. Right, this is going to be their first big road game, their first, again, challenge, right? You have a lot of in-state rivalries. A lot of these kids probably know each other, play against each other, with each other, right? And I think some of those nerves of trying to say, hey, I need to, outshine my teammate, my ex-teammate, or my rival that I played against. To me, it's a lot of, no, just do your job. Let's keep being us, right? Let's run the rock. Let's catch the ball. Let's do the small things right. I think that's the message that Carson needs to push to the young guys, because to me, that's what usually happens. You kind of saw it last week, is mistakes wind up beating good teams.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let's go before we circle back to this particular matchup. I mentioned you predicted the Virginia upset this past Friday night. Now, I mean, was that just you, talking a little trash, or give me like the specific reasons why you thought Virginia, as they did, would pull it off?
Yeah. Friday night games are always interesting. Again, whenever you build a lot of hype around games, you always see trap games. And to me, I thought Virginia was one. Again, I talk about all the time, confidence can make a team that isn't as talented beat a very talented team. So you have a Friday night game at home versus a very confident Virginia team. And I kind of said it like I was rewatching the first quarter, and Florida State literally shot themselves in the foot every drive. And it was like they kind of kept Virginia in. And so to me, whenever you add, again, road game factors, first-year quarterback, young guys playing, things like that, to me, I think that I didn't necessarily think Virginia was going to be, to be honest with you, but I'm like, hey, there's enough factors to where if Florida State gives them life, like that team has a good enough offense. It's almost like a Georgia Tech, right? They have a good enough offense where they can score really fast and put up a lot of points. And again, they wind up, going into double overtime, scoring a bunch of points. So I was a little bit upset because obviously I wanted college game day to be at Tallahassee. I think if they win, then it's for sure there. But it's still Miami, Florida State, so it's always going to be a great game.
It's always going to be a great game and always going to be a big game. All right, you talk about Carson Beck needing to help the young guys not get too amped up in an atmosphere like this. A young guy who so far no moment has seemed too big for him is Malachi Toney. Do you think he can find a success against Florida State's defense?
Yeah, I actually tweeted, I don't think Florida State has a guy that can cover Malachi Toney. a lot of the FSU fans have been commenting back with, I think his name's Earl Little Jr. or something like that.
Who can't tackle? I mean, he's a guy can't
Yeah,
tackle.
I
You saw him
know.
last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy's physical. I will say that he reminds me, and again, no knock on the kid. I haven't watched enough of him, but he almost reminds me of like a poor man's Derwin James, where like physically will lay the boys, not scared to tackle. But I give Derwin can cover sideline to sideline. That guy was a different type of, athlete. And again, I think that he'll have some play, especially in the run game, right? He's going to be in the box. He's going to have some big hits. But I don't know for 4 quarters, especially with a lot of the underneath game that Toney kind of does. With kind of almost reminds me of the way we use like Braxton Berrios, where it's like, hey, the first 8 yards, no one can really stay with this guy. Right now, again, I think if you take vertical shots, that might be a little different. But I think within the first 8, Malachi definitely has a lot of the advantages that I think we'll take advantage of.
And I think in terms of advantages, the biggest advantage Miami's going to have is at both lines of scrimmage. Now, I was watching an interview with Tommy Castellanos on ACC Network, and I know people are saying, what is he supposed to say? He's pumping up his team. He mentioned he thinks the matchups in the trenches will be level on both sides. He thinks Florida State's O-line and D-line will match up, well against what they have on the other side. I'm guessing by your chuckle, you don't feel that's going to be the case, Malik. You don't think Florida State will be even at the line of scrimmage?
No, I think the only team that necessarily, they didn't scare me, but I thought that they were probably the best D-line unit that we'd faced all year was Florida's. And I felt like we did a very good job. And again, they held us under 30, but I thought for the most part, we did a very good job of establishing the line of scrimmage, running the ball when we needed to. Again, I go back and look at Virginia. Virginia was down their center. I'm pretty sure they were out 3 offensive linemen.
Yeah, 3.
And it's like we got a guy that, with our right tackle, first rounder, you have Ruben Bain on the other side, first rounder. He's up for the Heisman, all type of awards. And it's like, I know that they have seen good players where it's like 1 or 2, but I think as a full unit, they haven't played a team as put together. I know they use the Bama situation, but I think now if you take Bama now, even later in the season, I think Bama, I don't want to say they beat them because, again, they can say what they want, but it's a lot closer than what the first game was, for sure. And so that's kind of the biggest thing to me, that I think that they've seen talent to a sense, but I don't think they've seen a full unit. And I think that there's two different sides there, right? Talented teams don't necessarily play together. We have a team that is talented, and they very much play together. You see them swarm to the ball. It's usually not one guy making the tackle. It's usually 5 or 6 guys making the tackle. And so I think the fact that this unit plays together, it actually strengthens, the individual pieces.
Now, what about, for Florida State on offense? And their offense has been really good this year. Give them a lot of credit. And Gus Malzahn is so experienced. I know he's going to have a game plan against Miami's D. Whether or not that works is yet to be seen. But how do you think he might try to scheme away Ruben Bain, right? Because you obviously, that's the guy who scares you most. You need to find a way to keep Bain out of your backfield and off the stat sheet.
Yeah. 2 ways. One, misdirection, right? And again, I was an Auburn fan growing up, really, obviously Miami, but in Alabama, I like Auburn more than Alabama at the time. He is very good with misdirection, especially when he has a mobile quarterback, but because it almost becomes like the Georgia Tech triple option, where you have one guy going one way, a running back going another, and the quarterback can keep it following the guy that originally jetted, right? So there's a lot of things with eye keys that he's going to try to do, not necessarily say, hey, right, let's double team a guy. It's going to be, hey, more, let's put him in conflict, right? Where no matter what he chooses, he's wrong, right? And that will be more frustrating to Bain more than it's like, hey, we're just going to drop back and try to double team him, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, if you're double teaming me, well, now there's a single team on Mesidor, there's a single team on someone else. And so now that's where I kind of talk about it, right? And I kind of compared this team to the 2017 Clemson team, where it's like, who do you really double team? Because that was the biggest issue we had with Clemson's defensive line, was like, well, you can't sit there and go 7 or 8 men pass pro because you get no receivers out. So who do you pick to double team, right? And so that's some of the ways that I would do, is put him in conflict and a lot of zone reads or misdirection stuff. Also, they stay in short and manageable. Make sure that he can't just pin his ears back, right? If it's 3rd and 8, it's most likely a pass down. To me, that's where he pins his ears back and he gives, those tackles hell. And so to me, it's about putting him in conflict, and then, obviously staying in, 3rd and manageable so that he can't just pin his ears back. But I just don't see them blocking us. I think even if you make him the read key on the misdirection to kind of isolate him, I think we're too athletic, and we got a lot of guys around him that can definitely make plays.
We're joined here by former Miami Hurricanes QB1 Malik Rosier. Talk a little bit about current QB1 Carson Beck when we come back. I also want Malik's prediction on the game. So you guys want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new Locked On Canes. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying around 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox so no customer gets left hanging. Their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Folks, we're also proudly brought to you by FanDuel. Yes, football season is in full swing. Miami, by the way, favored by 4.5 points at Florida State. So if you like Miami, you want to take a look at that. NFL season here, FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I build parlays. I create player props. I even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're joined by former Miami Hurricanes starting quarterback Malik Rosier. Heading into this matchup, Miami on the road at FSU, and it's a big matchup, Malik, because Miami, already right now favorites to win the ACC. If you win this game, that's going to go a long way. And if Florida State loses this game, they're kind of sort of eliminated from the ACC championship game with 2 conference losses. So there is a lot at stake here. And so I'll ask you, we talked about the road environment earlier, but how in that locker room, how do you manage the extra buzz that might come with the rivalry? Like what's the key to approaching this like a business trip?
Yeah. To me, and I don't know what the coaches do, right? But I think it starts with the coaches, right? Like I remember with Rick, Rick would give us like this 8 to 15 page like review. It was almost like a test where like you would go through and say, hey, what are their top coverages on first down, second down, third down, red zone, right? And then you're going over your plays. You're going over, obviously if there's any new installation plays of the day, or not the day, but of the week that you specifically installed for Florida State. Like you'd have to draw them out and then say, hey, like we doing versus cover 1, 2, 3, 4, quarter, 0. Like you got to go through everything, right? And to me, it's more of having a process, and again, I don't know their process, but having a process where it's like, no matter if you hear, because again, you hear it at Florida State Stadium because you're right underneath, right? Whether you hear the roar of the crowd because they're getting them pumped pregame, right? Like, what do you have that's going to make sure that you're locked in, right? I think everyone has different stuff. I know for me, it was just the more secure I felt in saying, hey, I know what they're going to show me, right? The better I felt going into game day. So for me, I just basically became a study hall on that, kind of review sheet that me and Rick would always go through each week. And I think that's some of the biggest stuff is, again, finding ways to keep locked in. Again, I'm happy that we have Mario, right? I think that's one of the biggest things is when you hear Mario's process saying, hey, we're not there yet. We still got to work harder, right? We got to be better. There's things we got to clean up. To me, it's like, again, a lot of guys would soak in the praise, right? You're hearing Florida State saying, hey, we kind of listened to the noise. And Mario's like, no, we're not listening to any of that, right? We're not back until we have a national championship. We ain't back. Right. And to me, when you have a head coach like that and the coaches buy in, to me, the players buy in as well. And so to me, again, I know Mario has his faults. I think every coach has their faults. But the one thing I love about him is just the process, the mindset. When I was at, Georgia, that was Kirby's big thing is, hey, this year's team isn't last year's team. You guys haven't done anything yet. And the same thing Mario said, hey, this team isn't the 90s and the early 2000s team. Like, we got to prove that we are back to kind of hold, the reputation that those guys set. And so I'm excited for these guys, and I think Mario's going to have these guys ready to play for sure.
Let's talk Carson Beck, 4 games into his career at Miami, which is hopefully, guaranteed 12 games here. Hopefully it ends up being a lot more than that. But what has stood out to you about QB1 so far?
Yeah, I would say one, patience, right? I think he's very patient. Again, I think this is a very unique offense where, again, you have a very elite offensive line. You have some really good backs. Again, he had that at Georgia, which is why I think the run game being so predominant here, as well as how Georgia kind of has their mindset, kind of works for him. But again, you have a lot of young guys, right? So you're not necessarily going to stretch the field a lot. And again, you're year one of the offense, so you're probably not, I remember year 1 to year 2 in Rick's and how more complex we got, right? And it's like, yeah, I know Carson's smart, but it's like there's definitely nuances to Dawson's offense where it's like it's better to keep it simple for both my first-year starter and my young quarterbacks more than anything else. So I would say his patience in the offense to me is what's made him successful, right? When the deep shots are there, he takes it, right? But when the underneath stuff's there, he is not afraid to say, hey, man, I'm going to just check it down and kind of live and die by that. I would say the ability, again, to get guys locked in. To me, I think you see across the nation, right, a lot of teams are losing teams they shouldn't lose to. A lot of teams are losing close games. To me, I think when you talk about leadership skills, to me, it's the Gringy games versus Notre Dame, right? It's the games like versus USF, not letting those games become like the Virginia game did for Florida State, right? It's beating one of your in-state rivals in Florida. To me, again, we kind of talked about keeping those guys locked in. The same thing as Cam Ward last year. It's not going to be a talent thing, right? It's the reason why Carson Beck was a 4-star going to Georgia coming out of high school. His talent's there. It's like, how do you let the guys around you kind of produce? And to me, it's about keeping those guys locked in. So I'm very excited for what Carson has shown. I think that this offense will get, better and better. I think a lot of people have been kind of like, well, why is it so stale? And there's things like that. But at the end of the game, I think, again, we got to understand there's a lot of young guys out there. Again, even CJ Daniels, right? He's an older guy, but just transferred from LSU, right? So he's learned offense as well. But it's like, how do you keep it simple, but also, right, keep it kind of have some new flavors? And so I'm happy about the way he's been processing. And I know, obviously, a lot of the results is what he's wanted as well.
Well, it seems like this could be another game where Miami's going to be able to set the tone, pounding the rock. I mean, Florida State, I don't know how much they can correct from one week to the next, but they gave up 211 rushing yards to Virginia. And you talked about UVA being down 3 starters on their offensive line. I would imagine, Malik, Miami's going to be able to run the football this weekend. Yeah,
and it'll be interesting. Again, it was kind of why I went back and watched the Virginia game. I don't think they play us in the same coverage at all. If they do, we're literally just going to run all over them. I mean, you go look at play 1, they're running 3 down linemen play 1. You might see 5 down linemen play 1 versus us, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, to me, I think that's sometimes the problem or issue sometimes watching certain teams is it's like, to me, and in Florida State's mind, the run game didn't scare Florida State. It was the pass game that scared Florida State. And then they wound up finding out, oh, well, these guys can actually run the ball some. So, again, I think that's probably what messed them up is I bet you they probably game plan for a very pass-heavy kind of day, and they wind up getting a run-heavy kind of day. And I think that, it can kind of work in our favor. Hey, you're going to get a lot of, 8-man box, cover 1, things like that. It's really good to throw into, right? And so I'm interested to kind of see how does their defense adjust because, again, I don't see them running 3 down linemen, or there was one time where they were running like 2 safeties on the hashes and another safety. They run like a cover 3, but almost like a prevent cover 3. And it's like, that's when you're scared of the pass. And so I know we have the receivers, but to me, it's like, you cannot let Miami just dominate you in the run game. And it's what we've done to the last 4 teams. And so I see them more loading the box. So it'll be interesting to see how their coverage changes. But I do think that we'll be able to get some good amount of runs.
Miami at Florida State this Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Do you have a prediction?
Yeah. Right now, and again, I'm going to watch a little more before my final, but right now, if game day was today, I would have Miami like 30-21. I do think Florida State's going to score. I am interested in, I know you talk about the defense, but to me, it's more the offense. I think that Florida State is a very offensive-driven team where it's like if the offense is clicking, they're very hard to stop, which is what you saw versus Alabama. And so I think that if they can't clean up the penalties and the turnovers and the fumbles, which is what we have done a good job of, I don't see them scoring over 20 points. I think if they can, it'll be a better game. But to me, I think the biggest matchup is going to be how do we stop Castellanos and how do we kind of make them kind of what Virginia did, right? When they shoot themselves in the foot, take advantage of it.
Well, as you could tell, Malik Rosier is a wealth of information. Let fans know where they can find you, whether it's on X, whether you're podcasting. Where are the best places to find you, Malik?
Yeah, I would say Twitter or Instagram at just Malik Rosier 12. I'm pretty sure that the Instagram is Malik_Rosier 12. But you can find me on there, especially for the Miami fans. You guys are going to see me trash talk a lot. So if you guys love a good trash talk with some Florida State fans, definitely follow me more on Twitter than Instagram.
Yeah, we love it. Malik Rosier, former QB1 at Miami. We appreciate his time. I appreciate all of you. Make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts.
One more announcement.
Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead.
So again, we're working a little bit with UM. My family owns a venue for the Miami fans that come in early on Friday. My family owns a venue. It's called Pockets Pool Hall. It's right off the interstate. But my dad owns it, family owns it, so I'll be there. I think if Trey Donaldson comes down early, he might be there. I know he's gonna do some stuff with the family on Saturday, but we're gonna be doing some Miami-based stuff on Friday in Tallahassee because I know again that people want to get there early because they don't want to leave later on Saturday and catch the traffic. There's a local bar that does have pool and bowling and darts and different things like that. That I'll be there drinking and have a good time. If you guys want to come hang out, talk some Miami football, then come hang out with me Friday at Pockets.
Man, I wish I was going. I'm not going to be in Tallahassee, but it's
I got a good amount of fans just like I can't.
But listen, I bet you there's a lot of people who are going to be there who are hearing about this for the first time, and so make sure you guys stop by Pockets and go chug a few beers with Malik.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'll probably take tequila shots, but you guys can have the beers.
I love it. Tequila, the beer, whatever it is. Check out Pockets the night before the game. That's so cool. He's Malik Rosier. I'm Alex Donno. I'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.